Okay, my name is Andrew Stuck. I'm one of the co-producers of Walk, Listen, Create, and we're one of the partners in the EU-funded Walking Arts and Local Communities project. These confluences are an event to which the public are invited to hear more about the Walk project, in which my colleague Babak is going to talk you through his intriguing art installation and exhibition that he has here running in Portugal as part of the Walking Body. So I'm now going to pass over to Geert Vermeire, who is the artistic coordinator for the Walk project.
Good evening. Tonight and today, for some of you, will be a moment of deambulation. It will be our first walk to an exhibition. At the same time, also an event of remembering. Not for nothing, this is called this confluence in loving memory. It is now 100 years ago that the surrealists, or André Breton and his two co-founders of surrealism, started to walk. They started to walk between the villages of Boulois and Romorantin with the idea to explore how walking life and dream life meet each other by walking night and day too. They could not see the difference or feel the difference anymore between night and day, imagination and reality. Eventually, they didn't get where they wanted. They gave up mid-through, as another walks that were cancelled because it was raining. But it was the beginning of an adventure. As 100 years later, we started this adventure of walking arts and local communities with a group of friends that eventually and first had met in Guimarães, where we are tonight. Guimarães is known for being the place which is called Aqui Nasceu, Portugal. Here, Portugal was born. And in this meeting, in the walks we did together, the group of people, of colleagues, artists and friends from France, from Spain, from Portugal, from Greece, from Belgium, came the idea to start a network for walking artists, with walking artists, and to give a new life in the 21st century of this inspiring form of art that brings imagination into the real world and into walking. Tonight, we'll look back to what has happened in the last year. Also acknowledging that this is a growing network. This is not just about the partners that initiated this project in Portugal, in Spain, in France, in Belgium, and in Greece, but that now we are extending with a group of nodes. We have more than 20 collectives and groups that are very eager to become part of our growing community, next to individual artists that are giving life to our initiative. The people behind the project, as it started 1 year ago, will tonight talk to you about the successes and the challenges they have met in the first year of our project. And then, as said, we will walk together with Babak Fakhamzadeh through an exhibition that he has installed here in Guimarães called In a Loving Memory.
I've said is that as part of the walking body here in Guimarães this year, I was privileged enough to host a photo exhibition as the opener of the walking body. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it and show you in a second. Now, there are several formats in which you can experience the work, and one of them is online. And the exhibition does a few things, and one of the things it does is it questions the value of memory or remembering and forgetting. And it makes you question why they are important and how they are important to us as a society and individuals in that society. Now, what it looks like as a photo exhibition is this. So this is what it looks like. And it's 250 80 or so photos, small ones, taken in 55 cities in around 12 countries. And there are some faces that you might recognize. Let me walk a little bit further. Where are we? Oh, here we are. Here we are. Two faces that you will recognize. And again, two faces that you will recognize here. It's the same faces. But what it is it's photos of benches in, as I said, 55 cities, where I vandalized the benches a little bit, if I'm not so kind to myself. That is, I put a plaque on 55 benches in 55 countries. And the plaque, you can read it here, commemorates me, or I commemorate the place. It depends on how you explain the English. But what I really like to, what I really hope that this does, or what it does is it changes the purpose of this piece of public furniture. And I appropriate the public furniture and change it in a way that makes it a little bit mine. And what I hope to achieve with that is that the people who see this, they question the purpose of this plaque. They question the value of memory. They question the value of forgetting. And through that, I hope to create a situation which they otherwise would not find themselves in. So they are nudged into thinking and having a conversation about memory and forgetting. And well, that's really it. So what it looks like is this. The 55 columns each represent a city. And then there is also some thought that went into why images go up or down, but I won't bore you with it. And yeah, that's in a nutshell what we see. If you have a question or a remark, I will gladly respond to it. Oh, maybe one more thing that I should say. As I said, I change a little bit of the public space, and that's very much in a way that is based on the ideas of the situationists, where I change the purpose of an object in the public space into something that is then experienced not on the terms of the creator of the piece, but on my own terms. So it's maybe to give it a little bit more context.
Babak?
Yep.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. Have you tried it as a sound? Because it looks like a fréquence de son, you know?
Yeah.
Have you played it?
No, but I don't read notes, but you're right that it looks a little bit like a sound wave.
But
that's more.
We could do it. It's possible. And then, but if you put it vertically, not horizontal, but vertical, then it looks like ADN. ADN en anglais, DNA, I think. But it's vertical. Okay, thank you. Congratulations. Good job.
Thank you, Sylvie.
Babak, yes, I have a question. Did you elaborate a strategy for people to search for you online? If I search in memory of Babak, did you plan a way for people to arrive at a certain location online, or?
No, but I do have the advantage that my name is unique. So if you Google me, if you Google my name, you will find me. And I'm very easily found, and it's to search engine optimize to find something specific when Googling my name is pretty much impossible because there's so many hits that it will generate, but you will find me. And I have already been found several times by people who have wondered who this guy is in the public space.
So that's interesting. You can tell us a little bit more about this conversation you have had with the people who was looking for you, searching for you?
Yeah, sure. I had find the place here in Paraty. Paraty is in Brazil. I had a friend who visited Parachi and sent me a message saying, "Are you dead?" Because I hadn't spoken to him in a few days, really only. But he had found the plague on his own accord. I've had someone who found the photos on Flickr. They're all on Flickr, and posted that he had found the plague in Catas Altas, which is somewhere in Brazil. Shortly after that's my wife and I had visited there. And that's incidentally also the only bench that's on private space. All the benches are in public space, but that particular bench is in a private national park. I had a few comments or emails that were sent based on people that found the project on my website, not the link that I sent in the chat, because that is like the book form in which the photos, I hope, publish the photos at the end of the year. But on my website, there's a bit of a justification and a bit of a background, and they had found that, and they had commented on that one. Well, no, what maybe also is interesting to consider is that the responses that I get are one of two. One is either people love it or people hate it. And typically the people who hate it, they see the vandalism. And the people who love it, they see the appropriation of public space. So it's an interesting duality. But often the response is quite emotional, is maybe strong. The response is quite strong. Either they love it or they hate it.
Any further questions? I mean, my question to Babak is, apart from the fact he's walking around an exhibition at the moment, is this walking art?
You're asking. Are you asking me, or you're asking?
Yes, I'm asking you, Babak.
Well, it's what is art, right? It's definitely sitting art, because they're all benches, but because they're all in the public space and you sit down after you have walked, it's definitely leaning towards walking art or art that is related to walking. But it's a bit fungible, absolutely. But you can't sit if you, you can't sit down on a bench if you haven't walked there, pretty much.
I have a question. Actually, first I have a comment, which is, it's interesting that people say that it's vandalism, because of course I'm sure in many places, but in London, there's a square near where I live and all the benches have plaques on them for people we presume have died, but we don't know. So it's not really, it's not vandalism. I think maybe people are more upset that they think it's sacred, that it's like almost like you're making a gravestone or something like this for yourself, so that it's sacred, having it. But I also know other people who say they hate benches with these plaques on them because they feel like they're sitting on somebody's relative. This suddenly has transformed it from a bench to a gravestone or a tomb or something which makes them obviously reflect on death, and they
exactly. But they're confronted to. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, no, you go.
Well, when they have a strong negative response, in my experience, they tend to revert towards the trope of vandalism. But I'm wondering if it is indeed really that they are confronted with their own death, and that they feel that I'm joking, that I'm joking with death or something like this, and that they feel that that is sacred. It's if someone
all the other plaques for all the other family members are
exactly
vandalism? It's the
exactly
same thing. So, but I was wondering actually, where you came up with this idea. Were you sitting on a bench looking at someone else's death plaque and then decided that you wanted one as well, or?
That's a good question, also because it's a bit shrouded in the mists of time. I've worked on. Let me turn it around again. So I've worked on what you see, these 55 cities, and there's 5 more coming in the next few weeks. I've worked on this for 18 months, so this is 18 months of work, meaning that I needed to exist for 18 months to travel enough to get me to 55 cities. But I had the idea to do this, well, maybe not a decade ago, but a long time ago, years ago. Well, I live in Brazil, as many of you know, and it was literally impossible for me to source the plaques. I don't have the plaques on me, but they're maybe 2 by 10 centimeters, something like this, and they're made of inox, so metal that doesn't rust. It was literally impossible for me to find a place that made them in Brazil. So eventually I gave up and had them made in the Netherlands, and then had them brought to Brazil. But that was after years of not being able to get them in Brazil. So the idea goes back, maybe not a decade, but quite a bit. And well, it's a bit shrouded in time, as I said, but it's really the part that for me made this something that I wanted to, the reason why I wanted to do this is related to that I'm reappropriating part of public space, and I question the how we use public space, or how we as individuals are allowed to use public space. I am intervening, but I'm not intervening where I scribble Pisa Sal or graffiti on a bench, which arguably is not making it more beautiful. But no, it's in a way that that is very common, indeed, as you say, Anne-Marie. It's in a way that in some places you see all over the place, for which people pay. Now, I also, it wasn't free, but I didn't pay the municipality for it, and that's maybe then a problem for some. Now, there's in relation to your story of there being places where there are many plaques on benches in some places. I have to find. No, not Montreal, Toronto. It's the map. So this is in Toronto, this green bench. And so I had a stopover last year in Canada on my way to Europe and from Europe. And in Canada, and in both directions, the stopover was like 12 hours. So I was like, well, that's great, because then I can rush out of the airport and run into town and find a bench and stick a plaque on it and run back to the airport. But it's, if I don't find a bench, then it's my time wasted. So I did research beforehand using Apple Street View and or whatever it's called, Apple Look Around or something, and Google Street View. And I found some good candidates of benches in a large park on the outskirts of Toronto. So I got to the airport, took the metro and got off, and then walked to the park and found the park. And there's hundreds of benches, and every single bench had a plaque on it commemorating someone who presumably had died. So that it was not ideal, and I couldn't really get into town anymore because I didn't have the time to find an alternative bench. So I walked around the park. It was a beautiful park. It was a very sunny day. Lots of people were enjoying it. And then lo and behold, I found a bench that was in the middle of nowhere in the park that clearly no one had wanted to pay for having their plaque on it to commemorate someone. And so I appropriated that last bench without a plaque in the park in Toronto. Yeah, little story.
Yeah, Babak, I also have a question.
Yep.
Yesterday we were walking around in Guimarães here, and you were looking to your bench, and there was sitting some people, some women on your bench. Today I saw the same women sitting on the same bench and the same woman on the same place, so on your plaque. So is it also, you said it's public art, it's maybe appropriation, but it's maybe also a way of community art? Or how do you see, what do you think when someone sits on this bench? Do you have like a connection with this person or not? This living person?
Do I have a connection? Well, I'm not sure I mentioned it just now, but the text said, the text on the plaque is "in loving memory," right? And we typically associate that with that I am the one who is in loving memory, because it's my name underneath in loving memory, right? But in English, it also goes the other way around. It can be my loving memory of the place. And of course, all these places, it's going to be a while before I forget all these benches. So it lives in my memory. So then if somebody uses that, I haven't created a bench, but I've created a piece of commemoration, a place. Yeah, if somebody then uses that, that creates a connection. And so also I'll tell you a small story that I'm reminded of with that. Let me find Rio de Janeiro. Here we are, Rio de Janeiro. So I was there a few months ago, and I put up the plaque, and then like 3 days later, I was there with a friend of mine who was visiting in Brazil, and it's like, well, let me show you the bench. And so we walked to the bench on Lago do Machado, and there were some people sitting there, and my friend, good friend of mine, old friend from university, he was visiting with his wife and with his kid. And the kid, you know, she's, I don't know, 12 or something, so she's very investigative and curious. And there were people sitting on the bench, and I was like, well, sorry guys, there's people sitting on the bench, and you know, I don't want to kick them off the bench. So, but I said, this is the bench. And then the kid goes like, climbs on top of the bench, pushes people away because she wanted to see the plaque. So very funny. And then a woman who was not sitting on the bench, but who was standing next to the bench and talking to some people around the bench, realized what the kid, so my friend's kid, was doing. And she was like, oh, she understood that we were there to see the plaque. And so she started talking to us, and she goes like, you're here to see the plaque. Oh, let me tell you about the guy who used to come here every day. He was amazing. And I'm standing there, right, talking to her, and I go like, yeah, really, what did he do? And for like 5 minutes, she's like praising this guy who clearly she had never met, but she told this story to me. So it was hilarious. Community art, yeah, it created literally a situation.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, very good.
So yeah, I mean, I'm here in Guimarães, the plaque in Guimarães I put up a year ago with the previous The Walking Body. I go back to see if it's still there. And actually they moved the bench 100 meters. So I was like, damn, they took the plaque away, but no, they moved the bench. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be, in a few weeks, I'll be in the Netherlands. So I'm gonna make sure, well, I'm not sure, I'm gonna check if the plaques are still there and what has happened to them. I found also that the plaque in Delft, in the Netherlands, is on a bench that I thought was secured, like in the ground, but it's movable. So I was there like a year and a half ago, and then I was there again early this year, I think. And I came to the place, and the bench was gone. Shit, they moved my bench. Or they took my bench, and no, they moved it, and they moved it like to the other side of the canal. And it's like, oh no, I found it again. Because you could pick up the bench. I didn't know. So yeah, it's I do have a connection, although I already have a connection with these places, but I really have a connection with these places.
You're part of the mythology now, Babak.
Yeah. Some of these benches, they're made of metal. They're gonna after the
this Babak guy.
Exactly. And in thousands of years, they'll find these things under the ground when humanity has been destroyed by our good friend Trump and our other good friend Putin. But the plaques will still be there.
How, Babak, when I stop, I walk, I stop, I choose my place. How you choose your bench? How you pick up your bench?
Yeah, good question. Mostly, no. Yeah, well, it's it can be for one of two reasons. The boring one is out of necessity. For example, I was in Mexico City, and it turns out that mostly in Mexico, but particularly in Mexico City, all the benches are made of concrete. So, and concrete, you can't attach something to it, right? So these are metal plaques. I need to screw them into wood, or I need to glue them onto metal, and concrete doesn't work. And so we'd spent like a week or something in Mexico City, and walked around a lot. And suddenly, next to a communal market, we found 3 metal benches. So I was like, okay, I need to do this now with this metal bench, because otherwise I'm not going to do it. But if I have more choice, then what I want is a bench where I would sit down on and enjoy the scenery. So where I can sit down and enjoy the world, where I would want to sit down. And there's plenty of cities that have many benches, and then there's so many that you can choose. So I pick one that I really like, a bench that I want to sit down. But it depends. Sometimes you don't have much of a choice.
And in the beginning, you spoke of relationship of people on the bench, having a talking or something. And that's one question. Do you also choose according to the people who are using this bench? And the other question is, sometimes do you set, like theater, you know, do you set the story like Andrew and Fred? Are they playing a role, or did you induce them into a role, or are they natural?
Well, I didn't tell them what to do. I asked them to sit on the bench, and they talk about the bench, they talk about the plague, they talk about the project, in both cases, in Gaasbeek and here in Guimarães. For the purpose of taking good photos, I prefer the subjects not to acknowledge me as the person who takes the photos. And this seems to kind of work because it nudges the people who are being photographed into more of a contemplative mood. And that fits, I think, the setting very well, because, well, it's about memory, it's about remembering, it's about, well, maybe forgetting. And so that contemplative mood works very well for the purpose of taking photos that are more in line with the ideas behind the project. And so no, for Andrew and Fred, I didn't tell them what to do. They chatted about what's the right word? Things passing over time. It's not really the way that what I want to say, but that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, I think we can say we were unscripted, weren't we, Fred? And we didn't follow the director's instructions either. However, what I was going to say was, Babak, is there any opportunity that this exhibition can travel? I noticed that Molly in Australia has said that she likes hearing the stories about the benches. Can we perhaps get Molly to include In Loving Memory in an exhibition in Australia?
Oh, well, I hope it travels, because it's, as it stands, not finished. There is 6 more plaques that need to find a home. Thankfully, because
could it come to Prespa so that that people could see it in July?
Maybe, but so far the possible next iteration will be at the end of the year in Rotterdam. I'm talking to an exhibition space there to have it displayed at the end of the year. Yeah, it can totally travel, although it probably would be a recreation, because I don't think I'm going to move these things around. They're going to find their own way somewhere, these little squares. No. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, great. Thanks so much for walking and talking us around In Loving Memory. Thank you to everybody who's come this evening.